Okay, we're starting our Adobe XD tutorial 1. First thing we need to know once you open XD, make sure you're on Home, and we're going to start with the iPhone XS. Double click that and click OK. So one thing about XS, we can make rulers. If we hover over this area, I'm going to make my board a little bigger here. And Command plus will let me zoom in. So if I hover over this area, see how I get the two little triangles and that light bar on the side. That allows me to drag and make guides. And I want my first guide to be 20. And you can see the numbers on the top in the pink. That goes to 20. Okay. And I want to make another one. That'll go another 160 after the 20. 160, and one that goes 15 after that, and another one that goes another 160, and that'll be 20 for the margin. So I've got margins of 20 on each side, and the gutter in between my columns is 15. So the space in between the columns is less than the spaces on the outside. All right, I'm also going to just, for kicks, put up some guides for the top and bottom margins at 20, so we can get an idea of kind of what that looks like. We don't want to go too far down. Okay, so now we need to do layout, and when we do layout, we need to do that not by just dropping a bunch of text and pictures and stuff on there. We want to look at shapes. We want to look at the design of the page, not just things. So we're going to start by using rectangles. And the project that we're going to make here is, it'll be an app for the TV10 faculty. So I want to have a header at the top, and I want to put a TV10 logo and a text that says TV10, and then I'm going to have 6 different faculty staff photos to put in there. So start with the rectangle tool and make a rectangle, and see how as these things turn, the edges turn pink or fuchsia or whatever the color that is, that tells me that I'm snap a line directly to it. So I do that. I'm going to add a fill color here. This isn't something you have to do, but this is just going to help differentiate so you can see that there's something that's a shape, that's a color there. Now I'm going to go to the Ellipse tool, and notice the ellipse can make big long ellipses, ovals. I just deleted that with the delete button, but I want to make a true circle, so I'm going to hold down shift, and as I shift and I'm holding shift and I'm dragging, and with that I can make a circle. And just think about the size that you typically see. We're not going to be super precise with this, but the size that you might see on an app. Now with that, I'm going to go back to the arrow tool, and keep in mind I can hit V if I'm on rectangle or circle or something. I get V, and that takes me back to the arrow tool. So kind of keep shortcuts in mind. Okay, so now I'm going to drag this, and you can see as I line up over the center turns that magenta color, and as I line up over the bottom edge of that rectangle, that lights up magenta. So I know that I'm dead on, so I've got that exactly centered. Okay, so now I've got a space for my header, I've got a space for my logo. I want to put some text under the logo, and I'm going to click the text tool, and then I'm going to drag and make a text box, make that line up, and I'm going to say TV-10, and I will center that, and I'm going to make it a few sizes bigger. Helvetica is the font I'm using, and I like that, so I'll keep with it. So I select all my text, click in the 20 here, and as that goes up, the text gets bigger. All right, so that, and then I'll probably make it bold. So instead of regular here on the font weight, I'll make the weight bold. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to make my text box kind of fit that. Now I want to put in the spaces for some photos. So think about a photo. I'm going to line up right on my margin here and make something that's kind of photo shaped. Get V to get back to my arrow tool. And you can see I dragged that down and it just kind of showed me what was an even. You see that when it turns magenta, it tells me that those two spaces are even, both 17 pixels. All right, so that's pretty good. Maybe I'll make another text box under here to put a name. And this name, I'll go back down to 20 and I'll make it not bold, I'll make it regular. I might even go a little bit smaller than 20. And then I can drag that back up. That can be pretty close to my box. Okay, so now there are some ways that I could do things, and some things are going to be more time consuming than others. Adobe has done a lot to automate the process of this kind of stuff. They know what people do, so they look at how you do it and they've automated the process. So one thing I could do, I could just draw another rectangle over here and try to make the sizes all match up and everything, and I could keep doing that for all of these boxes, but that's going to be time consuming and it's going to take precision, and I might miss, and even with the guides it's still not super precise. So I could do that. I could also hold the Option key and just drag over, and that will duplicate the exact shape. So at least the shape is the same size and I can see that it's lined up, but it's still not going to be as quick as if I select that and hold Shift and select the name also. Now if I go up to this repeat grid up here and click on that, now I can repeat that grid, and you'll see that it's quicker, but there are also going to be some things down the line that are streamlined because of that. So I'm going to take this and slide it over so that they line up on my guides. And there's the space between these is kind of larger than I want, so I'm going to notice when I do one, it does them all. All right, so that'll be good there. Okay, so now I'm ready to start filling things in. So I'm going to go to the Finder and into the files that I've got. All right, so the things I want to put in there, obviously I have that header image. So I can just drag out of the Finder, I can drag my header image over there, and it just pops in and fills up that space. And the logo, I can drag that in there and fill up that space. Now, if I look at that header and say, well, it's not quite centered up the way I want it, I can double click it and drag it over and try to line that up how I want it centered. And then when I click off it, then it's all centered up and ready to go. So keep in mind that you can click in images and you can drag them, you can resize them, you can do kind of whatever you want to do with them. All right. Now, with the staff photos, I could put these all in here and they'd all go into the same thing. But and I could take then each individual one after that and change, and it kind of, you see how it affects, each one affects its own row and everything like that. But that's a slower and inefficient way to do it. I can select all of them at once, and then each one will pop in. Notice that they pop in alphabetical order. So they all went in the order that they're named. That's not what I want for this, so I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go in and name these in the order that I want them. 1, Laura Trentopoulos. 2, Bob Carroll. 3, Kelly Lambert. 4, Rob Whalen. And I'm kind of doing these, these are the most, the people who have the most involvement at TV10, sort of. 5, Dr. Simons. 6, R.C. McBride. All right. So now, when I drag them all over there, they populate in the order that they were done. So that's pretty cool. And again, I can double click in these and resize them. Notice they scale, even if I don't hold shift, these photos scale without changing the aspect ratio. So I'm pretty safe there. All right, I'll make myself a little bit bigger here. And Kelly. So keep in mind, you do have to double click twice on these. Otherwise, you're resizing the actual triangle and not the image within it. So here I'm on the triangle, double click again, and I'm on the image. Brent doesn't really need to be much bigger. RC needs to get quite a bit bigger. All right, well, those all look pretty decent. Now here's another thing where it really becomes automated. This staff list, I can drop that right onto there, and they're all automatically populated. Because they were in order when I typed out my list, they stay in order here. Now, I can see that Laura Trentopoulos barely fits in there, but Brent Simon's EDD doesn't fit, so I need to make that text smaller. So I'm going to click in the text font size number and just arrow down until that all fits nicely. And I only had to go down 1 to 16. Okay, so everything fits in there. All of my boxes are there and ready to go. So before we get to the end, there's one more thing we need to make sure we're doing, and we need to save. So File, Save, and we'll save it to the cloud. I'll call that TV10 staff. TV10 staff tutorial. Save that to the cloud, and then it's there in the cloud and ready for you to use anywhere. Okay, so that's the end of lesson 1.